Thank you for your continued support and for commenting on one of my previous videos. I hope this video helps you. When someone you care about suddenly blocks you, it can feel like the emotional equivalent of a door slamming in your face. And when that person has an avoidant attachment style, well, that just adds a whole new layer of confusion. One moment, they seem distant, but still present. And the next, they've vanished, like a ghost who once had your heart. But here's the real question. What does it actually mean when an avoidant ex blocks you? And more importantly, what should you do next? This isn't just about them removing you from their digital space. It's about what's going on in their mind. People with avoidant tendencies fear emotional closeness, yet they're also terrified of being abandoned. Blocking is often their way of controlling a situation that feels overwhelming. It's not just about pushing you away, it's about protecting themselves from feelings they don't know how to handle. As Sigmund Freud once said, unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. Blocking is an avoidance way of trying to bury emotions, but that doesn't mean they disappear. Now, I know what you might be thinking. If they block me, doesn't that mean they don't care? Not necessarily. Avoidants are wired to suppress their emotions, but that doesn't mean they don't feel them. In fact, the stronger their emotions, the more they try to push them down. It's counterintuitive, but many avoidants block the people they care about the most. Not because they don't want them, but because they don't know how to handle the depth of their own feelings. But here's where most people get it wrong. They panic. They start reaching out through different platforms, sending long messages, or even creating new accounts just to be seen. But that's exactly what you shouldn't do. As the great Stoic philosopher Epictetus put it, we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. You have more power in this situation than you think. You just need to shift your mindset. Instead of chasing after someone who blocked you, what if you took a step back? What if, instead of obsessing over their actions, you focused on your own healing? Right now, your avoidant ex is expecting a certain reaction from you. They assume you'll reach out, that you'll demand answers, that you'll try to fix things. But what happens when you don't? What happens when you break the cycle? That's when things start to shift. Blocking isn't the end of the story. It's a plot twist. And like any great story, what happens next depends on how you respond. You don't have to play by their rules anymore. You don't have to let their fear of intimacy dictate your self-worth. Remember what Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." You have the power to turn this moment into something that strengthens you rather than breaks you. So, here's my promise to you. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what your avoidant ex's blocking really means. You'll also learn the most powerful way to respond, one that puts you in control, protects your dignity, and might even shift the dynamic entirely. Because, trust me, there's a way forward that doesn't involve chasing, begging, or losing yourself in the process. If you've ever been blocked and felt confused, hurt, or frustrated, then stick with me until the end. This is going to change the way you see avoidance, relationships, and most importantly, yourself. If you are ready to become the best version of yourself, type this mantra in the comments. Write it down. I release the past and embrace my growth. Each block is a lesson, guiding me toward deeper self-love. I honor my feelings and choose to move forward, attracting healthy connections that nourish my soul. Ace Wisdom presents Avoidant X Blocked You. What it really means and what to do. Key point number 1. Blocking is a defense mechanism, not a final decision. When an avoidant X blocks you, your first instinct might be to assume it's over for good. But here's the truth. Blocking is rarely about you. It's about them. Avoidants don't block people because they feel nothing. They block because they feel too much and don't know how to process it. Avoidant attachment is rooted in a deep fear of emotional closeness. They crave connection, but also fear losing their independence. When things start to feel too intense, their instinct is to retreat. And blocking? That's just another form of retreating, a way to create emotional distance when they feel overwhelmed. As Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Your avoidant X isn't blocking you because they've stopped caring. More often than not, they're blocking you because they don't know how to handle what they're feeling. Think about it. If they were truly indifferent, why block at all? They could simply ignore you, let things fade out naturally. But blocking is an active move, a sign that they're trying to manage their emotions by shutting down all external triggers. So, what should you do? Nothing. No chasing, no trying to get around the block, no desperate messages from a friend's account. Because the moment you chase, you confirm their fear, that relationships mean losing control. Instead, the most powerful move you can make is to step back, focus on yourself, and let them sit with their own decision. And trust me, they will notice your silence. Key point number 2. Your silence speaks louder than words. When an avoidant X blocks you, your first instinct might be to reach out in some way, to ask why, to seek closure, to prove that you still care. But here's the paradox. The more you try to break through their walls, the higher they'll build them. Avoidants fear being overwhelmed by emotions, especially when they feel vulnerable. Blocking is their way of trying to regain control. But what happens when you don't react the way they expect? What happens when instead of chasing, you go silent? That's when real power shifts. Think about it. Why do people block in the first place? To create distance, to get relief from emotional pressure. But when you step back completely, they're left alone with their thoughts. No validation, no reassurance, no proof that you're still waiting. That's when the doubt creeps in. As Napoleon Bonaparte famously said, "Never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake." Now, your avoidant X isn't your enemy, but the wisdom still applies. If blocking you was their emotional escape plan, your silence forces them to sit with their own emotions instead of using you as an emotional trigger. The best response to being blocked? No response at all. Let them wonder. Let them feel the weight of their decision. Because if there's one thing avoidants aren't great at handling, it's uncertainty. Key point number 3. Avoidants struggle with emotional absence more than you think. At first, blocking you may feel like a relief to your avoidant X. It gives them a false sense of control, a way to suppress the emotional overwhelm they couldn't handle. But here's what they don't realize. Avoidants are more affected by emotional absence than they let on. See, avoidants might crave space, but they also need a sense of connection, even if it's from a distance. That's why so many avoidants do things like watch your stories, check your online status, or even subtly lurk in the background without directly reaching out. Blocking removes that safety net. Suddenly, they can't see you. They don't know what you're thinking. And for someone who relies on emotional distance without losing complete access, that's unsettling. As philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche put it, when we are tired, we are attacked by ideas we conquered long ago. This is exactly what happens with an avoidant ex after blocking you. At first, they feel powerful, like they've regained control. But over time, the absence starts to gnaw at them. What are you doing? Are you moving on? Have they lost you completely? Avoidants don't like chasing, but they also don't like feeling forgotten. And this is where your power comes in. By staying silent, by not reacting, by focusing on yourself, you create a void that they can't easily fill. And that, ironically, is what makes them start thinking about you more. The lesson? You don't need to remind them of your worth. They'll feel the loss on their own. Key point number 4. Chasing them confirms their fear. Letting go disrupts their pattern. One of the biggest mistakes people make after being blocked by an avoidant ex is trying to fix the situation. They send long messages, create new accounts, or ask mutual friends for answers. But here's the hard truth. Chasing an avoidant only reinforces their deepest fear. That relationships mean losing control and personal space. Avoidants have a core belief that closeness leads to suffocation. So when they feel overwhelmed, they run. But when you chase, you're confirming their worst fear, that they can't have a relationship and their independence at the same time. And that only makes them pull away even further. As Lao Tzu wisely said, by letting it go, it all gets done. The world is won by those who let it go. But when you try and try, the world is beyond winning. The irony with avoidance is that the more you try to hold on, the more they feel the need to escape. But when you let go, that's when things shift. When they expect you to chase, and you don't, it disrupts their pattern. Suddenly, the comfort of knowing you're always there is gone. The predictability vanishes. And that's what makes them start wondering about you again. So what should you do? Nothing. No reaching out, no proving your worth, no trying to get unblocked. Instead, focus on yourself, your growth, and your own healing. Because in the end, the real power isn't in getting them back. It's in showing yourself that you never needed to chase in the first place. Key point number 5. Time and distance make them reevaluate their decision. At the moment they blocked you, your avoidant ex likely felt justified. To them, it was the easiest way to escape emotional discomfort. But here's something most people don't realize. Avoidants struggle with emotional processing, and that means their feelings take longer to catch up with their actions. Right now, they might feel relief. But over time, that relief starts to wear off, and something else creeps in. Doubt. The silence they created starts working against them. They start to wonder, did I overreact? Were they really the problem, or was I just scared? As Steve Jobs once said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. Avoidants don't process emotions in the heat of the moment. They process them after they've had space. And the longer you stay away, the more likely they are to reflect on their decision. But here's the catch. This only happens if you give them that space. If you try to break through their emotional wall, they won't have time to miss you. If you try to reason with them, they'll feel validated in blocking you. But if you disappear, That's when the reflection begins. The longer they sit in silence, the more their mind starts to replay memories, conversations, and moments with you. And without your presence to blame, they're left with only one person to face: themselves. So remember this: time isn't your enemy. It's your greatest ally. Let them sit with their own emotions while you focus on your own growth. Because the real question isn't when they'll unblock you, it's whether you'll still care when they do. Key point number 6. The fear of losing you often hits them too late. Avoidants operate on delay. They don't process emotions in real time. They suppress them. When they block you, it's their way of shutting down overwhelming feelings. But here's the thing: avoidants don't truly feel the loss of someone until that person is completely gone. At first, blocking you gives them a sense of control. They think, now I don't have to deal with this. But time changes everything. The silence that once felt like relief slowly turns into emptiness. The connection they took for granted is no longer available. And here's what they didn't expect: you're not chasing them. As Paulo Coelho wrote in The Alchemist, when you can't go back, you have to worry only about the best way of moving forward. This is the dilemma avoidants face. By the time they start to miss you, they also start to fear that you've moved on. And that fear, it's one of the few things strong enough to override their avoidant instincts. This is why no contact is so powerful. It forces them to confront a reality they weren't prepared for: the possibility that you won't always be there waiting. But here's where many people go wrong. They assume the moment their ex starts feeling the loss, they'll come back right away. That's not how avoidants work. Instead of rushing back, they hesitate. They watch from a distance. They might even test the waters with small, indirect actions. Viewing your story, liking an old post, or reaching out in a casual way. Your job? Don't give them immediate reassurance. Let them fully sit with the weight of losing you. Because once they realize they may have actually lost you, that's when they're forced to ask themselves the one question they've been avoiding: did I make a mistake? So there you have it, the intricate dynamics behind an avoidant ex blocking you and what it truly means. It's not just a simple act of cutting ties. It's a complex emotional response rooted in fear and uncertainty. By understanding these patterns, you're not just equipped to handle the pain of being blocked, but you're also empowered to reclaim your own narrative. Remember, your silence is powerful. It's a testament to your strength and self-worth, a way to show that you won't chase after someone who isn't ready to face their own emotions. You have the right to set boundaries and prioritize your own healing. As Rumi wisely said, the wound is the place where the light enters you. Your pain can transform into growth if you allow it to. If you've taken anything away from today's video, let it be this: you are not defined by someone else's inability to engage. Your value isn't contingent on their recognition or presence. Instead, focus on yourself, your passions, and your path. And while it may be tempting to dwell on what you lost, remember that sometimes what feels like an ending is just the beginning of something much more beautiful. An opportunity for self-discovery, personal growth, and healing. If you found value in this discussion, make sure to subscribe and join our community. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos, where we dive deeper into relationships, emotional well-being, and personal empowerment. We're in this journey together, and your support helps us create content that truly resonates with you. Thank you for joining me today. Remember, the best is yet to come, and your story is still being written. Embrace the journey ahead, and I look forward to seeing you in the next